They should agree with people. Neither is their voice high, nor are they even seen, both at the policy making and policy implementation level. To this end, we bring to your table for an amendment or inclusion of the proposed clause, so that the minority ethnic nationality will be protected. Alternatively, Mr. Chairman, that's why I said it's not just about state creation. We are also
calling on you to help create the 6th Indigo state for the Anyaman nation. Now let us be clear. What is Anyaman? A stands for Anyotan North and South, Ndofa East, Ndofa West. I stands for Ika, O stands for Oshiri, and of course, Ndofa and what is going with the Ndofa nation.
Ogoja was the O in the core. Up till now, almost how many years now, decades now, Ogoja state has been pending. It's the oldest area of this state, of this country, the oldest province of the whole country that has not become a state. I come from the southern part of Cross River State. Ogoja is in the north. We have absolutely no problem with the creation of Ogoja state. We think it is a matter of justice. We think it is a matter of development and a matter of progress.
Please, can you summarize it?
Yes, on the entire bill, on the constitutional amendment. While Abobo states a robust position on all aspects of the constitutional amendments, we have presented in our memo a robust response, but the executive summary will be on the creation of Obono State.
Every Nigerian is a stakeholder in Nigeria's democracy. This public hearing is a testament to the Senate's unwavering belief that truth emerges not from silence, but from dialogue, not from monologue, but from the aggregation of honest opinions. That is why we are here, not as party men, that we are not here as party men and women, but we are here as patriots. Not as political actors, but as nation builders. The demand of this moment is that we speak freely and boldly. Speak freely and boldly.
This zonal public hearing is not a mere procedural stop in legislative activity. It is in truth an important moment in our democratic journey. The scores of constitutional alteration bills across 13 thematic areas, painstakingly curated by the Senate Committee on the Review of the 1999 Constitution, speak to some of the most urgent and persistent questions about the structure, efficiency, equity, and future of our federal union.
Our committee's work represents a collaborative effort with our esteemed colleagues in both the House of Assembly, both the House of Representatives and the Senate of Assembly. To achieve the vital constitutional reform we seek, we must unite and work in harmony. I'm encouraged by numerous national and state legislators present today, all of whom share a common vision. Our collaboration will not end with this public hearing together. We will enhance our contribution to produce outcomes that resonate with national consensus, always prioritizing the interest of our citizens.
A unique proposal also surfaced, the call for African citizenship bill. Advocates urged the government to formally recognize and grant citizenship to descent of Africans who were forcefully taken during the transatlantic slave trade.
If this African Descendant Citizenship Bill is passed into law, it will bring about ancestral healing and reconciliation of their origin, investments of professional human capital injection into Nigerian economy, access to and promotion of Nigerian cultural diversity.
The South-South session is part of a nationwide public hearing spanning all geopolitical zones, except the Northwest, which was postponed in honor of the late elder statesman Aminu Dantata. As the Senate committee reviews the numerous submissions, expectations remain high that the process will birth a more inclusive, just and forward-looking constitution. Jennifer Pius, ADBN News.
Well, you're welcome back. You're still watching the weekend edition of the Morning Express, and we're switching gears now. This time we're having a conversation about state creation. The conversation about state creation has been on for a very long time. The recently concluded constitutional review that held across regions for 2 days saw presentations made, and some considerations have been made, totaling up to 40 thereabout. As we progress, we'll look at those names to be considered. However, the agitation for the creation of more states continue. What are the stumbling blocks? What are the bottlenecks, the bureaucracy, if you like, those things that make it absolutely difficult? Do we need more states? These are the questions we'll be asking this morning. Jennifer, let's meet our guests.
Indeed, and we have a legal practitioner joining us, Barrister Mendie Archibong. It's been years.
It's been quite a while, and it's so nice to be back at DBM. So thank you for having me.
Welcome, and we also have an executive director, Citizens Advocacy Center, Mfon Gabriel. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
It's great to see Mr. Mfon Gabriel, my friend.
Yeah.
Back in the days, back in the days of Talking Point.
Yeah.
Two of you were regular guests on Talking Point.
Yes. It's fantastic to be on with you as well again.
Thank you.
So let me bring the Talking Point back. Now, the Talking Point today, state creation. Let me begin with you, Barrister Mendie. Do we need more states?
Those that feel disadvantaged in the distribution of the resources at the state level and also at the national level would probably say we do need more state creation, so we can favor them. Those that feel advantage in the distribution of the national wealth called the national cake, and also are favored in the distribution of power and resources at the state level, would say we don't need more state creation. So basically, it's a political statement and a political desire that is coupled along with some financial needs by the people in the area that will clamor for more state creation. It's not a straightforward answer.
Okay. Let me bring it to Mr. Mfon Gabriel. During that public hearing, you made a presentation. In fact, you watched the drama that ensued when there was calls for creation of Obolo State and the retraction from some other groups that this wasn't supposed to happen. In your opinion, do you think the Obolos deserve a state? Let's start from there.
That's a very pointed question.
Very.
I was like putting me in a box. Yeah, but yes, it was actually an opportunity to participate in the public hearing. I think that was 18th, 19th of June. And aside from Obolo State you talked about, there were other demands for states like the Nyoma,
yes,
and that's from Delta extraction. Then the
other ones, yes.
Oguja, we probably make those demands.
Yeah.
And then there were also Boris State from Rivers.
Yes.
But again, there were equally counters.
Yes.
Right. And if you look at the conditions for the creation of states, I understand, like Barrister Archibong has rightly, mentioned, that in the context of marginalization, right, where people are excluded, in the governance process, and the economic benefits that comes from governance itself. You know, some persons or some ethnic minorities are excluded in those arrangements. It will definitely, you know, trigger the demand for the creation of states. So those conditions are there. But again, if you look at other very fundamental basis for creation of states, like geographical contiguity, as in the closeness of, you know, the localities or local government areas, the geographies for those places. If those places you want to create states for are not proximate, are not, you know, in the same geographical space, it will be difficult. So in the context of Obolo State, with the new map that the Akwa State House of Assembly, you know, has created, that day at the House of Assembly, at the public hearing, you will observe that those who were clamoring for Obolo State, they talked about Oro Obolo State, right? So they're looking at the people from the Oron extraction down to Ibno and down to Eastern Obolo, right? But with the new map, you see local government areas like Iparini in there, Ikodobasi in there, Esreket also in the mouth of the ocean. So it makes it difficult. It makes it difficult for that to work because that geographical contiguity is not there, right? I equally heard from their presentation that yes, since they already have access to the ocean, most of the oil resources, the oil and gas assets are in there. So on the basis of economic viability, they could, you know, they could actually survive as a state in that regard. And then they talk about the people, the population around there. So these are some of those conditions. But beyond that is the question of the Constitution. What is the position of the Constitution?
I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you, Mfon. Let me make it clear for the purpose of information for the viewer that the House of Reps, that's the committee sitting to look at the Constitution review, especially submissions made, they have disclosed that they received 46 formal requests from the creation of states and alongside 117 demands for new local government areas. This clamor for new states span across region, and if you allow me, I'll just name a few. Savannah State, which will be capped from Borno State, Kwarafa State, which will be from Taraba, and then Katagum from Bauchi, and then you also have Amana from Adamawa. You also have Saudauna from Taraba as well. You know, Taraba is quite big, and these are submissions made. Still from Taraba, you have Muri. And then you come to the northwest area, you have Gurara from Kaduna. I'm wondering if that's going to be for southern Kaduna, because I'll break that, you know, it's southern Kaduna, that's a Gurara state. And then you have the new Kaduna as well, also in Kaduna. You have Aideja from Jigawa, and they have Gobir from Sokoto, and they have Kainji from Kebbi and Niger, around that Kainji Dam area. And then for Tiga, you also have Tiga for Kano. You have Gari State from Kano. Kano's quite big, so I don't know if they'll be able to seat some small space for that. And they have from Niger also, you have Edu, Okun from Kogi State. You know the issue of the Okun people, exactly, and the marginalization and all of that. So they made submissions as well. Still in Ogun, you have, in Kogi, you have Okura. And then you come to the south in Plateau State, you have Southern Plateau, South Plateau, also Lowland State from Plateau State also being considered. You have 19, which will be from existing Plateau, another new carve there, a submission made Ifesowakbo. That means Lord puts us together. That'll take us in Kwara. They also need their own state. It will be called Ifesowakbo in Yoruba language. That means Lord puts us together. Akba, also in Benue. You have Akbagba. So there's Akba and there's Akbagba. Submission also in Benue. Ayatutu also in Benue. And I'm thinking, how big is Benue that they're asking for all this portion? And then we go to Orashi. Orashi will be from Anambra, Imo, and Rivers. You take a piece from these places and then you create your Rashi state, all for the southeast zone. Anioma, which is quite prominent, just the same way you talked about the Ubolo. Anioma also featured prominently. Then you have a Titi, still from the south eastern zone in Aba State also. Aba State.
Abia.
Aba. So Aba, they want their own state there. And then you have Ada from Enugu. And then you have the Atlantic City State. I could go on and on and on and on and on. Everybody wants a piece. But when you come to Akwa Ibom, this particular one here has been very prominent, Obolo. That was why Jennifer jumped on it immediately. Now I'm asking, I'll come to you, Barrister Mendie. My question to you, what is fueling this clamor for more states?
Very simple, marginalization. Once people feel dissatisfied, they will want to seek the source of power so that they can actually gain for themselves what they feel that they have been cheated out of. That's why even individuals seek power, because they want something from the federal level and also from the state level. And also is an opportunity to seek more power within the states that they are on, that they are in, or within. It doesn't mean that they will succeed, but it means at least my voice will be heard and I will get something from those in power or from government, right? So, but the challenge here of all those
submissions,
the submissions and desires and proposals and that you've mentioned, if you really ask them if they believe two things: one, that they will succeed, and two, that they deserve to be given a state, they'll probably say, well, not really succeed, but at least our voices will be heard, because there is something missing. Maybe in a situation whereby a certain group of persons have not been given a position in government like commissioner or special assistant, and it's been persistent, and they've never reached the position of deputy governor or senator, or it becomes difficult. They feel left out of the political goal. So, but no matter what happens, it becomes incredibly difficult. It is incredibly difficult to create a state under a political dispensation. I don't believe it has ever been done before. It's always been under the military to a great extent, because when you think of the 2/3 majority in the referendum, that's where the real problem meets the road. It becomes incredibly difficult to get that 2/3 majority in referendum of the people in the area that are affected. And now, if you can't even get to that point, think of a majority of the states agreeing to you having a state, okay? And then it has to be a majority of the state houses assenting as well. But the main rub has always been that 2/3 majority in a referendum of the people of the affected area as conducted by INEC. That's where we will all have a challenge in this desires.
Okay, Mr. Mfon, as much as I'd be very empathetic about children, because they'd have to memorize all these states if it finally sails true. But do you think that at any point in the Constitution, especially as Barrister Mendie has mentioned, the 2/3, do you think that in any way that is flawed? Now, considering the fact that we're looking at Benue, we're looking at 3 or 4 states.
Considerations
for 3 or 4 states. Is it even possible to have that 2/3 of the majority to capture that? Or we go to Anioma. In fact, you saw that Anioma State had so much of applause, but now we're beginning to hear the whispers in the corridors that it is going through some turbulent times, and we're still talking about the 2/3, the majority. Do you think that part of the Constitution is a bit flawed, or maybe can be reviewed?
Okay, so my thought, right? The drafters of the Constitution, they created these conditions to almost make it impossible for new states to be created. Actually, looking at the conditions that Barrister Soko just mentioned, Chapter 1, Section 8 of the 1999 Constitution. It spells out those conditions. And, okay, a member, or the people who desire to have a state, they put a bill before the floor of the House, right? First, a two-thirds will assent, will give a sanction to it, right? Then you take it back to the states. Two-thirds of the State House of Assembly, two-thirds of the National Assembly, two-thirds of the National Assembly means both the Senate and the House of Rep. What that implies is, before even if the National Assembly agrees to it, the people who are demanding for those states need to, play some level of politicking, even within their own states. First, they need to raise the level of awareness so that when referendum is conducted, they can have the majority of two-thirds.
But mind you, these are minorities already. And if for over the years they've been talking about marginalization, crying and begging for opportunities to have a seat in governance, but that hasn't been heard. So will this one be heard?
So that's the question. So the first point of call would be, in fact, is to amend the Constitution to make the processes a little bit, easier for them to navigate. Because I can't imagine a situation where you first of all need to convince two-thirds of the National Assembly, that's the both houses. And then you come down home, you need to equally win two-thirds of the House of Assembly. When you are done with that, a referendum will now be conducted by INEC, where two-thirds of the citizens. Now, in this context, it's not the citizens of those, particularly those areas that need it. Likely, it's subject to legal interpretation, but the way I look at it is more like the citizens of the state, because somehow the map of that state is going to be tampered with. So you need the opinion, the voices, the position of the people of the state, two-thirds of it, to say yes to that creation. So what that means is there's need for high level of awareness and political consent by the power brokers in each of those states for it to succeed.
Okay. Now, I'm going to ask you both, but I'll throw this one to you, Barrister Mendie. One of the biggest problems we face, even as a country, is the issue of positive funds to even cater to the existing states that we have. Do we have the resources for more states?
There is always money, right, for what you want to do. But let me just clarify a little bit here. It's going to be the two-thirds of the people in the affected area that will have to vote in that referendum. And the first step is going to be two-thirds of the representatives of the people of that area in the National Assembly, in the State Assembly, State House Assembly, and also in the local government. And then two-thirds of the full National Assembly now accepting before the issue goes to the different states for additional confirmation. Now, in terms of funding, remember a few years ago, before the creation of Akwa Ibom State and some other states, that issue of funding did come up, but it's no longer an issue now. Immediately the states are created, there is going to be money for the states. Let's keep it in mind that as of today, a lot of the states are really non-viable. They are getting money from the federal government, right, to exist and run and operate as a state. So the federal government is borrowing to a great extent today. It just means that we will have to borrow a little bit more, borrow more, and mortgage the future of our children and grandchildren. And now I believe it's gone down to great-grandchildren to be able to run the new states formation. But if you were to ask me, United States has only added Hawaii as a new state. It was before 49 states. It has stabilized at 50 states all through our lives. Africa is a developing continent. Nigeria is a new country within the context of the independence of African states. So there's going to be some level of fluidity and flex in terms of the governing structure of the country. But at some point, we have to bring a halt to the increasing number of states from 3 regions to 12, or go on to 19 as well before the handover to the civilian administration of Shagari, to Babangida adding some and Abacha adding some more as well. We have to stabilize, right? And that stability is the reason that we have such stringent rules for the creation of new states. In fact, it is envisaged that there won't be any new state created under these rules unless something exceptional happens. Already the states, especially in the south, west, and the south, let's just say in the southern states, okay, already they are so small. Akwa Ibom is a small state. You can drive to at one end of Akwa Ibom to the other end within an hour. Okay, you're a little bit careful on the driving part, an hour and a half. That's maximum. Where can't you reach within Akwa Ibom within an hour if you start off from Uyo? So the issue is not really the creation of the new states and the viability of the new states or the funding for the new states. The issue is what is driving this clamor for the creation of new states. Let's just say Obolo people want a new state. There must be something behind it. If they felt included in the governance structure of the state, would they say this? Would they feel this way? Would there be this clamor? Others that are really in the governance structure of the state are not clamoring for new states. You don't hear it from other people. In the Benue states, the people that are leading in the governance of the state are not clamoring for this. Kogi state is quite a big state.
Very big state.
Well, I would say there is something there because I've been to Kogi, I've driven through it, and it's the last place I saw water tanker delivering water to people, and I was heartbroken. No pipe-borne water. So it's a little bit challenging to say they don't deserve it. I don't know the details of that desire, but I do know that it needs more development centers. Maybe they can think of more local governments and more investment in Kogi State. But even in that area, if we were to bring development down to the people and increase the productivity of the people, increase the capital base in terms of industrialization, you will find out that the clamor for new states will go down. I always strive to look at the best or something that I think is doing well, an organization that I think is doing well, and say, what are they doing? So I don't reinvent the wheel. What is the US doing that is so good that we don't have the clamor for new states in the US? It's by far bigger than Nigeria, by far bigger. The landmass of each state is by far larger than the landmass of the states in Nigeria. But there is no clamor for the development or for the creation of new states. Why? Because the development has trickled down to almost everyone to a certain level, that they are no longer talking about the clamor for states. They are talking about daily life, how they can improve their governance structure and how they can improve their daily life and increase their level of productivity.
All right.
Okay.
Mfon Gabriel, I'll bring that same question to you, but I'll take it another direction because I'd like to get your thought on resources. Distribution of this same scarce resources is what everyone is asking for, a piece of their own cake. Do we have enough of the scarce resources to cater to them? That's one. Two, do you think there's inequality in the distribution of this scarce resources?
Okay, so I think there's no scarcity of resources, so to say, but the management of resources.
You think there's no scarce resources?
No, I don't think the resources are scarce. I know in economic resources are scarce, right? Nigeria is a rich nation.
What makes us rich?
Rich in terms of the natural resource you have, right? And I know too well that yes, we are still, engaged in primary production, right? And the funds that have been coming to the country, if well invested, is enough to develop other natural resources we have. Now back to the question of whether states could be viable in the current setting, especially now that we have the clamor for new states. The current states, how are they surviving? A recent analysis looking at how states could survive outside revenue received coming from resources, oil and gas exports. Most states in the country, especially states in the Niger Delta, depend solely on, mostly on 13% derivation. When there's that, fluctuation in prices, you see how, it impacts on the economic development of those states. So if we are clamoring for more states, it simply means that it's going to be tight. It's going to be tighter than more. So for states to be viable, the demand for resource control that we have equally seen in the constitutional review is still a question that must be answered. The federal government needs to shield more powers. Most of those key items that are in the exclusive legislative list, they need to go to the concurrent or residual list, right? So that state government can have the opportunity to explore and take advantage of the resources within their domain. That way they could be more viable. But the situation where the federal government, the 1999 Constitution already vests the power that anything under the ground, that is a natural resource, whether oil and gas or other minerals, it belongs to the federal government. What that implies is that the state government can only be receiving the little they are getting from FARC. And you look at the IGR, the internally generated revenue of the states, different from what they get from FARC. Most states in the Niger Delta, for example, they've not gotten 20% of their revenue receipts. It's not up to, the IGR is not up to 20%. So it simply means that if they don't receive FARC, they can't actually meet their recurrent expenditure, what they pay as personnel costs and what they run as, they used to run governance. So it's difficult not to now talk about, implementation of projects that will directly impact on the lives of the people. So for me, I would say that resource control should be one, as we're talking about the demands for states. Instead of creating more states, states should be given the opportunity to, exploit the resources in their domain. While a share of it can go to the federal government, that is one.
Okay.
For the areas that have been marginalized, right? And in our own context now, we're talking about the Bolo states. I will suggest or recommend that state constituencies could be created so that those people have representations in the State House of Assembly where they can make, demands or push for, development programs for their constituencies. And what that equally implies is that commissionership positions could also be given to them. Federal constituencies, in fact, part of one of those submissions at the House of Assembly is that Akwa Ibom State is supposed to have more state houses of assembly. States like Bayelsa were saying that 8 local government is not enough. So the creation of more local government, more federal constituencies, more state constituencies could actually be an avenue that we could exploit to bring these people closer to government and equally, cause them to enjoy good governance. But more importantly, instead of, all the time we go to Abuja cap in hands, looking for FARC, it is better. I only just talked about the US. One key characteristic of the US is that they don't go to Washington every month and
to ask for their own share.
Exactly, they don't do that. So you see, if we are copying, we should copy well, right? Yeah, we should copy well.
Okay.
Let the state be in charge of their resources.
Okay.
A percentage of it can go to the federal. That way we can have states that are viable. Otherwise, the criminality, just to land, the criminality that we see where, minerals are being stolen and not, being reported to, the federal government, especially far north, will continue.
Mfon, we'll come back to you.
Yeah.
Jennifer.
Let's join virtually, or joining us virtually is a legal practitioner from Delta State, Barrister Emmanuel Ehirihi. Good morning, Barrister.
Barrister Ehirihi, are you there? We seem to be having a problem with that connection. We'll come back to that connection. Mfon said something that has provoked the conversation, and I intend to explore that path, that vista you've opened. He talked about the concentration being states controlling their resources. If that were to be the issue on the table, is it a case of the cart before the horse, or the horse before the cart? This clamor for state creation is inconsequential as to what is more consequential, which would be resource control.
Well, in Nigeria, resources control from afar off, right? Local resources. But still, the state has some level of control of its resources. Right? Maybe not to the extent, yes, internally generated revenues.
I thought that's from local taxes.
Local taxes. And
How many have to?
no, just look at it. Look at it this way. The way I think of things is do the best with what you do have, right? Show us what you can do with what you do have. Then we can begin to aspire to get other things that we can add to it, correct? Now, IGR, what are we doing with it, okay? But the IGR is not really the issue. The issue is control of those resources once it is handed over to the state. Does it reach everyone in the state in a fair and equitable manner, right? But I will tell you one thing, that if we have IGR very effective, if we have people's participation in taxation, people's participation in the use of these taxes at the local area, you'll get to see that these funds and monies will be used more effectively. I have always looked at other countries to see what we can do better, right? We talked about mismanagement of the resources. Mfon talked about how those resources are mismanaged, but it's not really the paucity or the scarcity of the funds that are at issue, but the management of resources. Before we begin to think of the effective management of these resources, let's do away with one very controversial thing here.
Which is?
Immunity of the governors. In the United States, we don't have immunity for governors. I'll give you an example, a very popular example. There was a time where a young senator was nominated to run for presidency in the United States under the Democratic Party, right? His name was Barack Obama, Senator Barack Obama. His senatorial seat was about to be sold by the governor to the highest bidder. He said, I have this very important thing here, and what you give to me will make me support you for this seat. Well, he went to jail. That wouldn't happen in Nigeria. So no matter how much you mismanage funds in Nigeria, you have that immunity against prosecution. And so there is going to be mismanagement of the funds. So people that would actually agitate to say, this governor is mismanaging our funds and those funds do not reach us, now say, okay, we can't touch you. So now we want our own, right? And by saying now we want our own, once they get their own, they also get that immunity.
Oh, indeed. All right. I think Barrister Emmanuel Ehirihi can hear us now. Good morning, Barrister.
Good morning, Barrister Ehirihi. Can you hear us? Well,
okay.
We seem to have a bit of an audio there. Barrister Ehirihi, while we try to get that audio fixed, but if you can hear me, definitely. The conversation here has been about state creation. Yes.
Okay.
You can hear me now, right?
Yeah,
I would ask you, first off, your thoughts on state creation. Do we need more states? That's one. My guest here, Barrister Archibong Mendie, and of course, Mfon Gabriel, they've made very, very valid submissions. And I'd like to pose that one as a second question while you have the floor. Should we be talking about state creation or resource control? The floor is yours.
Well, we should be able to
Masariri, are you there?
It comes from, particularly from the people of the South region, right from the when this resource.
Hello? Okay. Network situation there hampering the free flow of communication between us and Barrister and But let's come back to you, Mfon. He said, while I had... Okay, we seem to have Barrister Riri back. Okay, whilst we're working on that,
well,
he had said
there's something he mentioned, which I'd like to take up from that. He mentioned fairness and equity. And I'd like to bring in the geopolitical zones to play here. The geopolitical zones, we have the Northwest having 6 states plus the FCT, making it 7. The Northeast has 6 states. The Northwest has 7 states. The Southeast has 5 states, the lowest in the country. And the South-South has 6 states, and Southwest has 6 states. Now, we're talking about equity and fairness. When distribution of resources gets across, we definitely know which region will have more resources allocated to them based on the number of states available. With fairness and equity in place now, don't you think the Southeast should be looking for one more state, perhaps, to at least equate that to 6 states across the border?
I would rather say, gentlemen, for you to react to, who should get more consideration with her calculation?
Well, if you look at it, where is Akwa Ibom State and where is Cross River State? Is it in the South-South or is it in the Southeast?
It's in the South-South.
It's in the South-South. But geographically, where are we? We are really in the Southeast. If you really look at it, we are below the Igbo-speaking states, right? No matter how many states you create, if you still have the level of mismanagement that we do have in this country without accountability, we are going to have challenges. In fact, the smaller the states, the more ingrained that mismanagement will be. The bigger the states, the more voices that will challenge the mismanagement of these resources. It's easy to evoke sentiments and emotions to say, hey, these other folks have 6, these ones have 6, they have more local governments than we do, and we only have so many. Yes, there may be some level of validity to that argument, but the fact still remains. Let's manage what we do have today. That does not mean we should not aspire to have more states, but let's do the best in our management of the resources that we do have today, so that when we have, if it comes to that point, most states, we are able to manage more of those states with the appropriate resources. What if we have more states? What is going to be the economic viability of these states? We finally talk about the oil wells in the areas that are agitating right now in Akwa Ibom State. It's most likely that, yes, there will be some level of viability there, but to some extent, some of these other states are not going to be viable except there is a certain level of federal government intervention. If we want to make it more fair, more just and equitable in carving out the states and give the present location of the Southeast one more state, well, the landmass of the Southeast is so small anyway that we may begin to partition houses. And I'm just, I'm being a little bit extreme here. We may begin to partition houses to say that we are creating more states in that area. Do they deserve one more state? Yes. Do they deserve more local government? Yes. Do they deserve better management of their resources? Yes. Do they deserve a governor that actually does not have immunity? Yes.
Let's get your thoughts on this one. Equity. Jennifer gave a very, very good justification for the clamor in terms of equity. While some persons have 7, some persons have 6, it's not the same for the Southeast. So who should be getting more consideration?
Okay, so that's our collective position, including the barrister who just spoke, that the demands are genuine, right? But the conditions, especially the conditions in the Constitution, is tight. So for me, I wish the Southeast can get one.
One.
Just one. But the territory, the landmass for the Southeast is small. In that regard. So
But
what that implies.
While I read that, there's supposed to be a way to carve out from that is Orashi. It's supposed to have a carve from Anambra, Imo, Rivers. That can give Orashi.
That's why I talked about beginning to carve out from home.
The thing here is that the demand for state creation will not even end if we go on that path, right? And for me, something that looks like a master stroke that could actually resolve this is with the current geographical settings, political calculations in the country, where the North seems to have more seats in the National Assembly compared to what we have in the South. We could have the creation of more National Assembly constituencies that could equal what we have in the North.
The numbers.
The numbers in terms of that spread, instead of thinking of creating more states. Then secondly, for the question of equity and fairness too, the resources, because all of this agitation too is based on the mindset of what we are going to get from FAC, and then we use to develop our state. On economic grounds, on viability grounds, let the states that we have now prove to be viable first, right? And manage the resources they have. Most states are not doing well with IGR, right? Without FAC, how can they survive? So they should step up their game in terms of the IGR. There should be some level of creativity in governance. And again, for me too, it's not equally the business of the federal government to be controlling some of these resources, especially the natural resources. It should go to the states so that the question of viability can be strengthened. And I totally agree with the barrister Asuko on this. That someone is a governor and cannot be removed in spite of the fact that there are, strong evidences of mismanagement of resources. Doesn't sit well. So this is actually a window of opportunity for the immunity of governors to be,
if we're going
so that we could actually call our governors to account even while they're in office.
But if we're to go by that, it means a constitution review. And don't you think that will still be truncated at the level of review to start with? The numbers, who will do the voting? Who are those who will further applaud or go by this? Isn't it from the House of Assembly?
Okay, so I said, Archibong, you will come in, but let me go in first.
Go ahead.
So with the condition that we've seen in 8, and I think that applies to some of the amendments to the Constitution, where the State House of Assembly will make a position. The members of the State House of Assembly, I think they represent the constituency, represent their people. So if the majority of the people are in the position that the immunity of the governor should be removed,
okay,
and their position is strong across the different state constituency, it builds on the State Houses of Assembly.
Gentlemen, let me crave your indulgence because we have Barseriri back on the line, but I'm just getting information. We lost them again because we wanted to get some contributions from him, especially from Delta. So we'll come back to you to evolve your thoughts.
Okay, so I think that once Nigerians are in, I think to a large extent Nigerians will see yes, that the immunity of the governor should be taken off.
So the conversation should be more about the Constitution, removing the encumbrances that does not allow effective management of resources.
Well, this is part of that conversation about how to amend the Constitution so we can have more states, right? But also there should be a pathway to this through generating public interest in regards to how the funds are mismanaged, how the funds are stolen, how the funds are taken away at certain levels of governance, whether it is at the executive level, whether it is at the legislative level, or in the judicial level of governance. Some of these funds are being taken away without any form of retribution or accountability. And one of the most important things that I do know is the fact that once we hold our leaders, especially at the presidential level and at the gubernatorial level, to account, we are going to have better management of our resources. As it stands today, the president or the governor, vice president or the deputy governor can do anything they want. Point a gun at someone, shoot anyone, and there is really no accountability. Take all the resources, there is really no accountability. Even the idea of investigating them has been truncated. You can't even begin that investigation. Now you can challenge them once they step out of office, but while in office and when the damage is being done and when the damage can be controlled and remedied, there is really no accountability at that level. I do sympathize with those that genuinely have a desire to have more states created so that they can at least feel some level of closeness to good governance, not poor governance, because if there was good governance, we wouldn't have this. It just would not be happening. I mean, think about it. 2025, a child that was born in 2000, the year 2000, when we had the 2000 bug, is now 25 years old. He's an adult, probably finished college and is on his way to marriage or on our way to marriage, and yet we don't have constant power supply in Nigeria. If we had constant power supply in Nigeria with consistent flow of electricity, not 50 amps, not 30 amps that blows you, and not 300, but 220, 240, generally, we would have industries that are stable and are producing. If we had industries, we would have more jobs. And if we had more jobs, we will have more money coming into the economy. And if we had more money circulating through the economy, people who would be too occupied becoming more productive than to be agitating for state creation. It's because in a lot of these states, who are the largest employers of individuals? The government. And look, if I get into government, I bet you here, I bet you with every money in my account, which is significant, at least up to 50,000. I bet you that you will celebrate. I bet you that you would celebrate. You will call me and congratulate me, not because you are thinking, oh, it's going to be effective, it's going to be good governance in display today, but hey, him own down better. That is the first thing people will say, and dare I not contribute to the development of my own society, my own immediate community, in my local government and in my hometown. Dare I not sponsor people's children, or somebody's wife is in labor, or somebody's just lost their job. They will tell everyone that I don't have capacity, that they don't know why I'm there. Even if I put in boreholes after boreholes for water, pave the roads, I have to show some level of capacity, and that capacity is evidenced by stealing money that belongs to the people.
Let me bring this question to you, Mfon. Let's be clear. What is the problem of Nigeria? Leadership, more states, or management of resources?
Leadership first.
I knew you were going to say that.
It ties to the management of resources. The quality of leadership will manage resources well. So we need to get it right, actually in the leadership recruitment process. And that is where we made our presentation at when the Senate had their, the public hearing in Archibong. We were looking at the electoral reforms. Part of our demands was that the president should not equally appoint the INEC chairman. A select committee should do that, right? Because they say,
but who appoints the select committee?
He that plays the piper plays the tune. So our position was that there are credible organizations, within the country that could, make up that committee, and they will, scout for, the persons that should be the chairman of INEC as well as the commissioners. So we had proposals like the National Peace Commission, the NBA, the Christian Association of Nigeria, that of the Islam and all of that. So we have the Nigerian Youth, Council. These select bodies can, form a committee that will nominate and then send to the National Assembly to approve. Not the president sitting down and decide who goes there. At the end of the day, the entire electoral process, is compromised. So the question of how leaders are recruited is key in this constitutional review. That's one.
Are you saying that if a leader is able to evenly manage and distribute these resources, which we agree is scarce, the clamor for inclusion, which is fueling this whole state creation, will end?
So, Barrister already giving us the basis for that. If people are engaged, busy, occupied, right, productively, right, you wake up in the morning, you face your business. The idea of even, and then you see the dividends of good governance. It won't even cross your mind to make demands for creation of states.
Are you
the point here is that those places where the demands for creation of states, I was in Eastern Obolo like about a month ago. I could see how far away they are to governance. Governance is far away, and we have to say it. We have to say it the way it is. Government needs to put infrastructure in those places. The basic amenities, that people don't need to beg for. It needs to be there. And that is why we have this opportunity, and we are saying that in terms of appointment, we should do that. But again, more state constituencies should be created. For example, Eastern Obolo and which other local government? Eastern Obolo doesn't have a constituency on their own. They share a constituency likely with Ibuno. So there should be a separate constituency for Eastern Obolo and a separate one for Ibuno, so that at least they have someone in that local government that could champion and make advocacy for government projects and programs in their locality.
Well, here is the challenge. I'm sorry, okay. Jennifer, you had something to say. So go ahead, please.
No, go on.
Okay, here is the challenge. Even those that are represented by their brothers are still being cheated because of the level of corruption and mismanagement that goes on. So even if, and I'm not against giving them their own constituency, if that is what will solve the problem and bring them closer to government. But let's see the ones that are represented that area, how they are performing and hold them accountable.
Okay, where I want to ask now is on, you think we're shifting focus away from the necessary things we should be requesting for to asking for or asking things out of our grievances in the country. Now that I'm saying based on the backdrop, we've made mention of in terms of electoral processes, you've also mentioned the leadership and accountability aspect and the governors, the incumbents and all of that. You think we're shifting focus away from what we should be demanding for, but just coming up out of maybe our grievances?
Let me take that. Just hang tight 1 second. Let me take that. In the sense that, see, what should we be really demanding for? Good governance, right? And good governance is going to be dispensed by people that are eminently qualified, good Nigerians with good quality and the desire to serve the people. Right now, educated persons, the elites of this country say politics is too dirty and they don't want to dirty their hands by becoming participating in politics and becoming politicians, right? So it's more of a shoulder lifting argument to say, I don't care what they're doing, even if I say something, it won't affect them. You ran for president and, well, there was really nothing that changed after you ran for president. So they may use that as an example. But I will always say, what we should really focus on is bringing decent Nigerians into the political process. Even if they are not engaged politically, let them be engaged in good governance. Except we have decent and forthright Nigerians, no matter what we do. We can create states to the level of individual communities. Once there is corruption embedded in the process and in the persons that are entrusted with leadership, we will go nowhere.
Okay, I'll just put that up to you in a few seconds.
Okay, so the root causes of bad governance is the result for this demand. So we tackle bad governance. And I know that for those who are demanding for state creation, their solution is to have a state. That way they could solve that. But with the conditions we see on ground, it's going to take a very long time for that to happen. So right now, good governance can happen if we have good recruitment process, and the individuals who are elected should know that they're not representing themselves, but they're representing the people. And then they should, step up by delivering on their campaign manifestos or mandates, and more importantly, the accountability systems. Transparency and accountability system needs to be strengthened. In fact, there's already a drawback. There's already a drawback in terms of accountability and transparency in the current setting. And it's like we're not even looking at that direction.
Okay.
The budget numbers are no longer there for citizens to engage. What government is spending, we no longer know what they are spending again. So it's becoming as there is a drawback in terms of the reforms that we think that we have achieved.
Okay.
We need the government needs to be transparent so that citizens can participate in the process and equally hold government to account.
Indeed. I'm tempted to call you Barrister Mfon Gabriel.
we induct him by association.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Mfon Gabriel, and thank you, Barrister Mendie Archibong.
Thank you so very much.
We appreciate
Thank you very
your
much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. And we also appreciate Barrister Emmanuel
Although the network wasn't exactly friendly.
And we appreciate your insights with these few moments you were able to speak with us. And this is where we'll